Okay, so now we're at the stage of doing this video series where we want to actually talk about the assignments. So just to recap, if we were in our Canvas course, we would come to MyLab and Mastering. We would then come to the MyStatLab or MyMathLab, whatever it says, all assignments, or My Accounting Lab for that matter. And you come to My Assignments, and that's where you actually access your assignments. Now, we've talked about filtering from homework to quizzes. We've talked about there being samples. We've talked about the homework not having a due date. It opens at the start of class. It ends on the last day of class, but obviously you want to stay up to date. We did talk about the quizzes having very distinct due dates, time limits, sometimes, depending on the course, a certain number of attempts. We also talked about you have an infinite number of attempts to take samples. So now we've talked about all these things, let's actually look at them. So let's look at Chapter 1 homework. Now I'm not going to be specifically trying to get the questions right or wrong. I have actually gone in and done a few that were wrong. What I want to do is just show you the question, show you how it gives you some options, and move forward. So let's start with question 1. So it's going to ask you the question, and then it's going to ask you to choose the correct answer below. So let's click B. Let's do a final check. Well, unfortunately, we didn't get it right. But let's say we want to go ahead and try again. So let's say try again. And let's click and select D this time and do a final check. Excellent. So the good news is, based on the question, we have selected the correct answer. It has given us a little bit of feedback here, telling us about the answer. So it gives us not just the homework question, not just a select, but also the great feedback of giving us the reason why we've selected the right answer. So let's move on to the next question. So let's pick C. We're just picking. So that unfortunately, we didn't get the right answer. And this is one I've attempted before, so I just want to show you what happens. You have the option to select a similar question. So let's look at that. So now, what's changed? The question's substantially the same, but what's changed is perhaps the number, the rating, how it explains that something might be flawed. So just be careful when you're asking for a similar question, you have this option. So let's pick this. Let's check our answer. Unfortunately, we still didn't get it right. So now we're going to want to pick another. Whoops. And let's do a final check. And we still didn't get it, so let's move on to the next question. This is homework. It's meant to help you. It does count toward your score, but it's really important that this gives you the feedback so that you can do it, get it correct. You can always go back in and do your homework. So you also always have that option of selecting a similar question. Great little aspects that help you with the homework. So we're in homework. Homework's goal is to help us. Help us so that we're prepared when it comes to taking the quizzes and tests. Homework. Help. So now let's say we're in a question and we want help. Now what is offered for options will vary and be different depending on the course that you're in. But this is a great way of getting some question help. So we can either get a look in our textbook. Again, this is a statistics course that we're looking at, so StatCrunch, which is a tool. You could get tech help. Now, once again, each time this will be different. Perhaps it's going to show you a video. Other options would pop up in this question help area that will help you. You could even print your homework. So let's take a look at that. You can print the question only or print the homework assignment. So let's see what that does. And there we're printing the question. Why would this be relevant? Well, maybe you want to take a look for this particular question in your textbook. Maybe that would be helpful. Maybe it's something where it's a math question where you really need to kind of look at it and have it in writing. So that option exists. So within your homework, you will always have the option for question help. It will vary depending on the type of question being asked. So actually, let me scroll through a few questions to see if I can find a different category, and here you go. Here's a great example. This tells you a lot of information. There's a video, there's an animation, and as before we saw textbook, StatCrunch, tech help. So you have the ability to do these things. Let's talk about what else you see, which is help me solve this. So we're going to help me solve this. This is going to walk me through the steps required to come to the answer that we need. So it's going to really vary, again, as I've mentioned, depending on the course, depending on what the question is in nature, what the type of question help you're going to see. But be aware of the fact that if you're really struggling with the procedures necessary to solve a complex problem, you can have, if the availability is there, help me solve this, where it's going to walk you through those steps. So once again, you see it, you have the question, which we've seen before, and then it's going to tell us what we need to do. So we continue. So did this happen? Yes or no? And you're going to answer it. And it literally steps you through all the stages necessary to help solve the question. Really great tool to help you in your homework to prepare you for quizzes and tests. So again, question help is great, from helping you to solve it, viewing an example, the video, the animation. Let's click on video just to show you what that is. So we got a pop-up blocker message. Go ahead and accept that. Allow the pop-up to play. And we have a video. So always be sure, if you're having any challenges, questions, struggles, click on the question help within your homework and get a more detailed answer, an approach, and extra information to help you with these particular types of questions, which you will see further in your quizzes and in your exam. One thing that's not specifically relevant with the questions I've shown you, but may come into use with some of the math courses, and be aware of pop-ups. Pop-ups are important to allow. When it comes to certain math courses, you're going to need to use the math palette. This allows you to enter your answers. So if you have fractions, if you have exponents, if you have absolute values, square roots, cube roots, ordered pairs, it's something where you have to be very careful that you're using the right method to answer. So be sure to select the correct option from the palette. The palette will not display if it's irrelevant to the question. But if the palette is there, that means it may be necessary for you to use one of those options for your question. So this is homework. Again, homework is here to help you. It's meant to guide you so that you're prepared for your quizzes. So I'm going to get out of this and I want to show you what a quiz and what a test looks like. Okay, so I'm back where I planned on being, which was quizzes and tests. Again, important things to realize: there are due dates, there are time limits, there are numbers of attempts depending on the course. You need to be sure that when you're going to start your quiz, you're prepared to commit the time needed. You're in a nice location where you can devote the time and attention to that test, because the clock is ticking the second you start it. So because these are all done, let's go ahead to the one that we can actually access right now. This is the final. Again, here's a tutorial on how to enter information. This is great. This shows it to you one last time before you're actually taking the test. It gives you a way of putting the information in. Okay, so let's go ahead and say I'm ready to start. So this would be my final. I definitely do not want to answer any of these, but I want to show you when you're in a test, it shows it for you. You have very little options for things that will help you with your quizzes. So basically you click, you move on. It doesn't tell you whether you've gotten it right, whether you've gotten it wrong. It gives you no feedback per se, but just like you've gone through the other quizzes, practices, etc., it's preparing you for this moment when you're actually taking the 4-credit quiz or exam. So that's how you would take an exam. I'm going to get out of this And I want to go back and show you some quizzes, and I also want to show you the samples. Okay, so I clicked into a test. We're in a test. It gives us information. It gives us information that will help us to answer the questions. So we have to select the information, fill in the blank. Be aware when you see this, it means you have to scroll down. There's going to be additional information. Some of these questions are complex, so you're going to need to be sure that you see all of them. Some of them have multiple parts as well. So you have to be sure that you're paying attention to everything that's involved. Some of this is going to be in here, which will answer the questions, and keep going. So just be sure to know that you're answering all the questions that exist. I mean, there's only 10 questions, but you're given an hour and a half on that. So that's going to explain to you that you have some complexity to these questions. So if you don't answer something, you still can move on and see more. You always have the ability to see. If you have an icon, gives you more information that's going to be relevant to this particular question. So just be aware as you're working through this, you're going to see things that are a little different, and they'll be different in the classes, whether it's math, statistics, accounting. So just be comfortable with the icons that you see, and one way of doing that is the practices. So let's go into a practice to show you those, because that's really going to be what hones your skills and makes you feel comfortable when you're in this actual environment. Okay, so now I'm in a Chapter 1 review quiz, and I want to show you what it looks like. So once again, we have questions. You're going to keep moving through, making your selections. You have table data, which is going to be relevant to the particular question. Does it make sense? Questions based on, and you're going to just keep selecting. So be sure to scroll down, make sure you've seen all of the question before answering it, and just keep going. In our next and final video, I'll be showing you the MyLab home for your course. This will show you how to access your textbook, your grade book, and some really important things you can do in this area.